The Carolina Hurricanes are entering their 25th season, and it is the 25th of September, and therefore we will be inducting the very first class of the Locked On Hurricanes Hall of Fame in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Sunday morning. Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Hurricanes and myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. And as I mentioned, the Carolina Hurricanes are entering their 25th anniversary season here in Raleigh. It is the 25th of September, and I'm going to be introducing a new monthly recurring episode for you guys, and that is the Locked On Hurricanes Hall of Fame. I'm sure you guys are wondering, like, what is constituting, this, and what's the criteria? And like, there's not a whole bunch of criteria. It's really folks that are looked at, folks from in and around the Hurricanes organization that are just looked at fondly upon the fans. They could have been players, personnel, coaches, uh, folks that cover the team, anything like that. And here I felt this was something fun to do for the 25th anniversary season. We got 25 years worth of stuff to go over. And you know, it's just kind of a weird, funny way of just recognizing folks that mean a lot to the fan base. And we're gonna start kicking that off. And this first class is gonna be a bit larger than classes maybe next month, or in what's after September, November. I totally forgot what was after September and October. But we're gonna have a minimum of 3 people per class. I think that's fair. Like I said, this inaugural class, a little bit more, because it's the first one. But starting off, we have someone that is a real gem for the fan base, especially if you follow him on Twitter. If you had the pleasure of meeting in person, I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person many, many times, and having him here on the show as well numerous times. And that is one Wade Mentor, Carolina Hurricanes PA announcer, NC State PA announcer, and professional ring announcer as well. But yeah, you look at Wade, and he's a guy that just the fan base has embraced wholly. And as I mentioned, if you've had the pleasure of meeting him, just how makes anyone feel rushed. And you if you go around tailgating, you'll see him walking around, making his rounds, saying hey to people. And same, if you go inside, you'll see him walking around the concourse. And again, if you follow him on Twitter, always interacting with fans, great ambassador for the organization, which I think every professional sports team, whether it's hockey, football, basketball, whatever, they need something like that. They need uh, a good ambassador for their organization. And Wade definitely is that for the Carolina Hurricanes. And he's going to be back on the show at some point here in the future. But moving on to the next one, we have one who covered the Hurricanes for a few seasons, and like Wade, was really embraced by the fan base, and that is Sarah Sivian, formerly of The Athletic, now of Bleacher Report. And Sarah, she's one that again embraced by the fan base, always, really connecting with them. If you met her, at a game, always, stop, say hi. I remember, gosh, when was it? 2019. A friend of mine, gave me a stick or whatever, and I was like, "Hey, Sarah, you want to sign this?" It just have like everyone sign it, during training camp. And we met up in the eye. She signed it, and she was absolute blast. And I know, she was one that has, a lot of the folks covering the Hurricanes right now, myself included, with her work and what she did with the Athletic, covering this team really inspired a lot of folks to start covering hockey, or whatever it may be that they wanted to cover. I've seen it several times. You have folks, hockey blogs and podcasts and whatever it may be, and a lot of folks cite Sarah as someone who made them want to get into covering it. And that impact there on this wave of folks covering the team, that's really important because this team is continuing to grow. And while, yeah, she may not be the Hurricanes beat reporter for the Athletic anymore, she's still out there doing stuff, and still going to be covering hockey. And again, just gonna inspire more folks to just start covering the sport, learning the sport. And I think that is very, very important. And yeah, that's something that folks folks wouldn't be doing that, if it wasn't for her, covering the team. And that's a very big honor, I guess you would say, to be the reason why, someone's decided to cover the team. And also, with the work she did was always great, great stuff. She's honest in it. Obviously never tried to sugarcoat anything. If you remember, back when the Ned trade happened, the D'Angelo signing and whatnot, it wasn't sugarcoated, and it wasn't tried to spin it in like, oh, this is a good thing. Like, no, this is something that a lot of folks don't like. And I really appreciate the honesty. We talked about that over the past couple episodes, talking about training camp, with players being honest with stuff. It's something that folks really respect, whether or not they like what's being said or not. The honesty can be respected. And Sarah, absolute gem, well deserved to be in the first Hall of Fame class. And moving right along, we have our first player, and someone that ins- inspired a lot of folks to get into hockey. And we talked about Sarah, inspiring people to write about hockey and cover hockey. Here we got someone who make folks a fan of the sport, and that is Cam Ward. And he's a lot of folks' first favorite player. You talk to anyone in their you know mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s as well. A lot of them are going to cite Cam Ward as their first favorite Hurricane or first favorite hockey player in general. He is one that is some folks are critical of him, and he wasn't perfect goalie by any means, but it, you look at what he did for the organization. Yes, such a steady force in net for them for so many years, getting into Stanley Cup, winning a Conn Smythe, all of that stuff. That's stuff that's very, without him that doesn't happen. You know, and like I said, he's a lot of folks' first favorite player. And he had, in his prime, he was great. And we've talked about it many times before of the team that was put out in front of him, his lack of a quality backup, all that stuff. So yeah, his prime years were definitely shorter than they should have been. I think we can all agree on that. And then obviously he spent that 1 year in Chicago, but came back, signed a 1-day contract to retire here. And again, he's a Hurricane for life. And he still lives in the area, obviously. And A lot of folks, if you see him, he's always a pleasant guy to talk to. And again, it's always someone that's looked at fondly upon the fan base, or someone that the fan base has always looked upon fondly. And I think that is something that uh, you got so many folks into the sport in the area. In an area where it wasn't thought to succeed. The team, everyone. I mean, obviously, like the relocation jokes and whatnot were happening while he was here, but again, so many folks' first favorite player, and I think just the fact that you got so many folks in the hockey that puts you in alone, and then again, everything he did for the organization while he was here, I think that puts him in. And then next, we got our with this one, it's a trio. All right. With this, you couldn't induct one without the other. And that is Mike Manasiaco, Trip Tracy, and John Forsland. This broadcasting trio, especially John and Trip, the voice of the Hurricanes for decades. Obviously, John going back to Hartford and being here for so long, covering everything. Mike, we talked about with him the other day when he was on, coming in, starting in the radio, then moving into the on ice stuff, and then obviously now being play by play. But him being covering the team for so long, and just being synonymous with Trip Tracy and John Forsland, and then now being the play-by-play announcer as well. And something I didn't bring up to him is now, whereas someone like me, John Forsland was the guy, and now he's obviously a guy for Seattle fans, but now that's Mike. He's gonna be the voice of the Hurricane for these kids now, and John again, again, I wouldn't be covering the team if it wasn't for him and the way he inspired me to cover the team. Again, along with Sivian as well, and several other reporters as well. But John, just I wouldn't be covering hockey without him. And then you look at Trip, him being here for again so long and just being synonymous with the brand, and his voice, being the voice of like me, and he's still going. Yeah, the voice that folks grew up with, with the team, and he's obviously still doing it too. And folks are still growing up and still listening to him. And you think about a lot of times, I'm 26 now. There's folks that had kids younger than me. There's folks that grew up listening to John and Trip especially considering he's still here. They're now like introducing their kids to it, and that's going to be the voice for their kids as well. And I think that's awesome, and that's just something that's going to come with the team being around for much longer, or for a long time. Again, 25 years. I think that's something that's going to happen. But forging these relationships that they have with the fans. If you've ever met any one of them, they're all great to talk to, and they all mean a lot to the fan base. And fan base is, now with John in Seattle, because these are the voices you hear on TV. These are the ones that are calling these games. These are the ones that are calling, these big moments, whether it be on TV or radio, whatever it may be. And, whenever you play like the clips back, that's who it is. That's whose voices you hear. And, there's just so many. You got Svetch's lacrosse goal with John on the call. You got them clinching the playoffs after 10 years of not making it, and Mike's interview with Peter on the bench after they clinched, and the list goes on and on and on. Those are just some of the more recent ones that come to mind, and yeah, these are the voices you think of when you think of Hurricanes hockey. So of course they're going to be in here. And finally, our final inductee into the inaugural class of the Locked On Hurricanes Hall of Fame. No surprise here, the greatest Carolina Hurricane of all time, Rod Brind'amour. Obviously, who else would be the headliner of this Hall of Fame class? Of course, it is Rod. Again, the greatest Hurricane of all time. He's been a part of this organization for over 20 years, whether it be a player or a coach. He's synonymous with the Carolina Hurricanes. And, whenever, you think of Carolina Hurricanes voices, you think of John, Tripp, Mike. Whenever you think Carolina Hurricanes players, especially if you've been around for a long time, you think of Rod Brind'amour. He took us to 2 Stanley Cups. You think back, to the first one where we lost to Detroit. Him being an alternate captain along with Glenn Wesley, Ron Francis being the captain, being a part of that, and captaining the team to that 2006 Stanley Cup, and getting them to the conference final in 2009. Handing the captaincy off to Eric Stahl, and I mean, just the list goes on. Everything he has done for this organization. As a player, being again, just an all-time great. There's not much you can say when it comes to him on the ice. He's a phenomenal player, and he's been a part of almost everything here, aside from the inaugural season and that first trip to the playoffs back in '99. He's been a part of just about everything, and it's insane just to think about. Like, he's been here almost through it all, and whether it be a player or coach, and again, on the ice, getting us to the promised land, and then as a coach, bringing us back to relevancy. And whenever he took over the head coaching role, and now you look at what he's doing there. Again, bringing this team back to relevancy and making them a powerhouse team, a team that is a perennial playoff team, a team that has legitimate Stanley Cup aspirations, not one that, oh yeah, we're in the playoffs, that's good enough. Like, no, this is a team that's trying to win the Stanley Cup. He's hoisted one for us already as a player. Let's get him, one as a coach. I really think you can do it. He's already won coach of the year. He was the all-star team head coach last season as well. He's a hell of a head coach, and he's not one that, okay, we're gonna bring back like a good name, like a well-liked name for the fan base, to generate some buzz and whatnot. And he obviously now he's suited for the job. He knows what he's doing. He's a heck of a coach. Folks like to play for him, and again, he's made this team relevant. Again, he did it before as a player. Now he's doing it again as a head coach. And if anyone were to get a statue out front, it'd be Rod Brind'amour. And again, he is the Carolina Hurricanes. You don't have the Hurricanes without Rod. Again, he's been here through it all. You don't have the Hurricanes without Rod. Plain and simple. But that is the inaugural class of the Locked On Hurricanes Hall of Fame. Wade Minter, Sarah Sivian, John Forsland, Mike Maniscalco, Tripp Tracy, Cam Ward, and Rod Brind'amour. That is your inaugural class. On October 25th, we will have the second class. Again, this is going to be a recurring monthly segment with at least 3 inductees per class. We're going to be doing this all season long. So make sure October 25th, you are tuning in for the next class. If you have anyone that you want to see inducted in, make sure you let me know. You can follow the show on Twitter or Instagram at LO_Hurricanes and myself at Jared Ellis _96. If there's someone you want inducted, make the case for them. You can comment on Instagram, tweet at either account on Twitter, and you can also comment on YouTube. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow when we continue our recap of Carolina Hurricanes training camp. You guys enjoy your Sunday.